So there's a set of attacks that are occurring today that really are less focused on actually breaching an actual customer. So for example, if somebody comes into an environment and they're trying to do their normal daily job and they happen or accidentally infect something. Imagine you're on the way to work and you accidentally hit someone. You didn't mean to hit them, but then that happened. And that's the same thing that's going on today, is that you have a set of people who are just trying to do their normal job. For example, they're using a USB pen drive, they're plugging it into their HMI, and they're copying a file on or off. But because of the fact that they're plugging that in without even knowing whether that USB was clean or not, they might have been using that for the last 2 years, suddenly they've infected not only their system, but also the entire plant network, which is very dangerous and a big, big problem. Well, the employees that come in have really become a vector of attack for these environments. We saw this several years ago, right, with something like a Stuxnet. A Stuxnet came in, it was able to worm through the entire air gap into the actual environment. And so when it comes to an intentional attack, the employee is the single biggest weak link, because they are the ones that are going to go onto the computers and actually do something. But if you have some level of exploits, if you have some level of techniques so that the employee may not even know that they're infecting that environment, well, they become the most easy vector for an attacker to go in. This is one of the most interesting things, is that now that we know the problem, how do we know what the solution is, or what's the biggest answer to that problem? And for our customers, what we're seeing the biggest interest in is making sure that USBs are clean. And it's that simple. It's that if there are bacteria in your hands, well, you go in and you wash your hands. Well, you need something similar for your USBs. It's something that can go in and clean and take out all the bacteria or the virus or the malware from your USB. But not only that, you need a way that that USB can only be used if it was cleaned first. And similar to going to the washroom or the toilet and you wash your hands, you need a way that the USB can also be washed and also enforce that only a scanned USB can be used in your environment. When we have a breach or an infection, and let's not call it a breach, let's call it an accidental infection, because those are the most likely scenarios, is you have a malware that's very, very devastating from 1 or 2 years back, like a Config or a WannaCry or a Petya. These infections come into the environment, and by even inducing 1 to 2 hours of downtime, there may be a significant loss of material, a loss of time, a loss of a shipment, and all of these things can contribute to a big, big problem. If we look back at attacks that have happened in shipping companies, for example, this is something that if they weren't able to recover data and they weren't able to recover the backups on those ships, then they would have lost the ships entirely. And even though the breach was, in a sense, small, it was actually very, very large. And the impact was much larger than what you'd expect. So there's a set of solutions. We talked about one of the risks, which is USB. There's other, that's network. And realistically, the systems that the humans use, the workstations, the human interfaces, the HMIs, those are the ones that have the most vulnerability. And so for us, Symantec, we've partnered with folks like tisafe in country in Brazil, who have an incredibly large amount of OT knowledge. And what we have is this scanning station. It's very simple to use. You plug in your USB. It uses all of our technology to clean and scan that USB and make sure there's no malware on there. And if there is, you can just one hit and it'll delete everything. All of the malware will be gone, but your clean files will stay on there. And from there, you take the USB out and you're ready to go. And it's just that simple. We call it ICSP, Industrial Control System Protection. So the company's security policy is very important because that's what drives these kinds of changes. If we look at back in the day, maybe 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, not every company had an endpoint protection on all of their IT systems. And today there's the gold standard that you have to have some sort of endpoint protection on your IT systems. When a user is working, if you don't have an endpoint security technology on your system, then you're simply opening yourselves up to risks. Those policies that have just been ingrained in your mind have to be done in the OT world as well. In the industrial world, when you have a customer that's in the manufacturing space, could be in energy, oil and gas, these are all systems that have simple solutions associated with it, but it has to become a gold standard. So you have to do this, this is the policy, and therefore all of the organizations can be more protected and better protected against large-scale cyber attacks or even cyber warfare.